Today, we're going to be in conversation with our esteemed guest, Dr. Pravina Rodrigues. So I'm going to kick off by sharing a little bit about Wiki, what our goals, our past projects, vision, and mission are. So Wiki stands for the Women's India Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It's a premier national business chamber for women, envisioning global impact for women entrepreneurs, businesswomen, and professionals from all walks of life. It is under the larger umbrella of the federation called FICCI. It's supported by G100, All Ladies League, Women Economic Forum, and Sheconomy. So two of Wikki's major goals are to drive fundamental change in governmental policies, laws, incentives, and entrepreneurial ecosystems. And to encourage and empower women in business, industry, and commerce across all sectors and fields. The Wiki Karnataka Yoga Council was founded on 21st June 2020. Some of our past noteworthy projects are Petition to Open Yoga Shalas after COVID lockdown, Yoga Samvad, a conversation on women, wellness, and yoga, Parishraya, a gathering of women yoga teachers across Karnataka. We also had a video series about the business of yoga, newsletters, and Yogini Awards. Wikki's vision is to develop world-class and globally recognized work of all women entrepreneurs in the yoga field. Wikki's mission is to build a healthy community and ecosystem around yoga in Karnataka, to empower women yogipreneurs, to champion the cause of yogipreneurs, and to facilitate larger conversations around yoga careers beyond the classroom. We're also looking to develop scholarships in yoga and raise awareness on the work done by women in Karnataka in the field of yoga. Now, I'd like to encourage everyone present here to follow us on social media. We're present on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So please do like, subscribe, and share our content with your friends and family. For those of you who have not been able to join or join late, this conversation is also going to be available on YouTube if you wish to access it anytime in future. So another request is, if you do live in Karnataka or Goa and are involved in the field of yoga and are interested in joining the Wiki Karnataka Yoga Council, please feel free to reach out to any of us, because we do have openings for council members at the moment. So before we start this session with Dr. Pravina, I also want to remind everybody that we're going to open the session up for audience for Q&A with Dr. Pravina. And we'll conclude the session with a guided meditation, which is going to demonstrate how a few elements of Shakta Yoga, such as visualization, color, light, candle, incense sticks, and flowers, may be incorporated in one's personal yoga practice. So if you can sit in your favorite meditation seat for this session, and if you have any of the previously mentioned objects handy, it would be wonderful. Now, I'd like to introduce the current president of the Wiki Karnataka Yoga Council, which is Soumya Iyer. Soumya has been chairing the council since the start of 2024. She's a practitioner, scholar, and currently she's working as a research scholar in the Malviya Center for Peace and Research at the Banaras Hindu University, focusing on the contributions and impact of spiritual women's sanghas on peace building and diplomacy. Soumya is also the director of Praful Urja Charitable Foundation, which focuses on sharing the practice of yoga with special needs children, cancer-surviving children, street children, and women who've been through traumatized situations in rural women. Thank you so much, Soumya, for facilitating this discussion today. Now, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for today, Dr. Pravina Rodrigues. Dr. Pravina Rodrigues holds a PhD in Theology and Ethics from the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California. She is adjunct faculty at Star King School for the Ministry and Graduate Theological Union Center for Dharma Studies in California. She is postdoctoral fellow at the Jesuit School of Theology of Santa Clara University, Berkeley, California, and assistant editor for the Journal of Dharma Studies. She's associate editor of a 34-chapter volume at the intersection of ecology and religion, titled Religion and Sustainability: Interreligious Resources, Interdisciplinary Responses. The volume was published under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Series in the year 2022. Dr. Rodrigues' publication, A Śākta Method for Comparative Theology, Upside Down, Inside Out 2024, offers a Hindu perspective on comparative theology, theology of religions, and interreligious dialogue. Thank you so much, Dr. Pravina, for joining us today. It's an honor to have you here with us. So with that being said, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Pravina now to introduce Shakta Yoga and Theology to our eagerly awaiting audience today.
Thank you so much, Priya. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And also thank you to Wiki, Karnataka Yoga Council's president, Soumya Iyer. And Priya, also thank you for arranging everything, coordinating, reminding me things. And I also want to thank each one of you for coming, because if you didn't come, then I would probably be talking to myself and they would wonder what's going on and, start looking for nearby hospitals. So, so thank you for being here, especially in large numbers. And also my apologies for those who are having technical issues joining because of whatnot. I don't know if Mercury is still in retrograde, probably is, but so I'd like to begin. I have a PowerPoint, and the reason why I have a PowerPoint is because the Shakta world is just so evocative. If you can enable my screen sharing. Thanks, Priya. So the Shakta world is really so evocative that you really need to see some pictures. And that's the reason why I have a PowerPoint for you, so that you can see and you can imagine what it's like in reality, even though I know this is being done virtually. So this is all the volume I got right now. I just switched laptops. And so I apologize if you're not able to hear. I can come a little bit closer if that works. Okay. It's saying host disabled participant screen. Okay. Hope you all are doing well.
Amrita, may I request you to make Dr. Pravina the co-host? She'll be able to share screen. Dr. Pravina, you can try now. I think it should be done.
Okay, yeah, I think it's working now.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me know if you're not able to, whatever reason. I hope you're not seeing all the mess on my desktop. Okay, let's see. Let's move this a little bit. So we're going to be talking about Shakta Yoga. And basically, I'm just going to introduce you to Shakta Yoga. And so just at the outset, I'm going to tell you what Shakta Yoga is about. It includes the arts and aesthetics. It includes candles. It includes audio, sounds, music, and activities. So so you don't keep guessing what this is about, and so there's no suspense. This is not a a crime movie or anything like that. So just so you know what exactly Shakta Yoga is, that's in a gist. So here's a brief presentation. Here's a brief outline of what I'm going to be presenting. First, I'm going to be talking about the Devi Mahatmyam so that you know where Shakta Yoga comes from. It comes from this text, which is very much part of the Hindu world. It's part of festivals, it's part of rituals, and this text is called the Devi Mahatmyam. So I will start off by talking about the story that's and then I will unpack the story for you. And the reason why it needs to be unpacked is basically because it's an allegory. So for you to sort of understand what Shakta Yoga is about, I would need to sort of explain the meaning, the deeper meanings that's part of the story. Then I will talk about the 4 domains. That is how Shakta Yoga basically includes the visual, the acoustic, olfactory, and tactile. And then I will present not too much, but just some research on music and on ambient sense, on fragrances. And then we'll talk about application. So let's dive in. Okay. So Shakta Yoga basically comes from, and this is my argument, this is, I make this argument in one of my forthcoming publications on yoga in the Devi Mahatmyam. So Shakta Yoga comes from this text, which is a mantric text, and it is called the Durga Saptashati. It has 700 verses. It's also called the Chandi Patha because it has to be recited. And it is translated in English as the glory of the goddess. So you see, in many traditions, you have God as father. In this tradition, you have God as mother. She's the divine mother goddess, and she performs a lot of feats, and you will see as we go through the presentation what exactly she does. And here is a picture of her on the left-hand side. She is reclining on a lion, and the lion also participates in the battles that she goes through. So the glory of the goddess is a text that has myth. It's written in allegory, which means that it has a hidden meaning. You sort of have to uncover what it means. It is a text that is recited. It is chanted. So mantras are not something that you would just read out. They come in musical formats. And the formats will be, for example, they have different meters. So the meters will be Gayatri, Anushtup, Trishtup, so on and so forth. So this mantra has several meters. I won't get into the meter, but just to give you a brief understanding of what the text is, I'd request you to just please kindly mute yourselves as you enter the room. And welcome to those who are part of this, who are entering right now. So the glory of the goddess is a mix of myth. It's written in allegory. It has hidden meaning. It has acoustic sound, and it is sung. And it is used particularly in the ritual, during the ritual festival of Navratri, which is 9 nights dedicated to the divine mother goddess. That is when it is chanted in particular. Now, in this text, there is a story that is mentioned. And the story is about a king and a merchant who meet a sage, a rishi, and he's a mystic. And this king is a dispossessed king. He's known to be good. He's just. He treats all of his people with justice, and he treats the people who he is ruling over with with love and compassion, as though they are his own children. However, what happens is, over a period of time, the people in his kingdom, they get corrupt, and they kind of scheme, they plot along with another king, and I'm adding a little bit of masala. Masala means spice, which means that so that, just to keep you a little bit entertained. If you read the text, it won't be exactly like how I'm saying, but it's just to give you a sense of what's happening in the king's life. And then the king realizes that his life is in danger, that this other king from another kingdom is going to attack with the help of his own officers. So what he does is he leaves the kingdom on the pretext of hunting, and he goes away. And as he's moving on his horse, he enters a forest. And in that forest, you will see that he enters a sage's, a mystic, a yogi, if you will, his hut. He has an enclosure. And this is, and in this space, this rishi, or this mystical person is living over there. He has a community of believers, and each of these wild animals that he has around him are living in peace and harmony. So the king is there, and the sage invites him in. He says, "Come on in." And he says, "Feel free to be around here, to be around us as a community, to participate and whatnot." And what happens is, even though the king is there and he's seeing all this wonderful things which you generally normally don't see, you don't see wild animals living in harmony, yet his mind keeps getting diverted towards the pain that he has gone through. And he starts getting anxious, and he starts pacing up and down. And then after he starts pacing up and down, he suddenly meets another person over there who's a merchant. And it seems like the merchant is going through a similar situation. So the merchant, who is there also in the forest, appears to have gone through pain and sorrow as well. And he is dejected because his family members, that is his wife and his old children, have cast him out because they just got greedy and they wanted property and whatnot. So they cast him out. So they start talking to one another. And when they start talking to one another, they say, "Oh, well, we're in the same situation. How is it that we feel so much pain?" So what they decide is, let's go talk to the rishi, this sage, this yogi who's there. So they go ahead and they talk to the yogi. And as they're talking to the yogi, the king says, I've been here, and this place is wonderful, and there's all kinds of magical stuff happening here. But for some reason, I'm still in pain. And I keep thinking about my kingdom. And I also have this elephant, this prized elephant that I have. And I keep wondering what's going on with this elephant. So the yogi who's there, this mystic, the sage who's there, meditating in the forest, looks both at the merchant and the king and says, "Well, it's all because what you're experiencing is also because of the Divine Mother Goddess." And they are a little bit confused. They're like, what do you mean? We would like to know more about this Divine Mother Goddess. And then the sage starts to tell them a story. So the Devi Mahatmyam is actually this chant, this mantra, which goes on for about, if you chant, it goes on for about 3 hours, or it can be minimum 3 hours, it can go up to 4 hours. And he tells them the story of the Divine Mother Goddess and of everything that she has done prior to existence, everything that she is within existence, and everything that she will do for those who are interested in knowing her. So that's the story, and you can find it in the Devi Mahatmyam, this text, which is really, really famous in the Hindu world. And so now I'd like to unpack this story. And we can unpack and understand what Shakta Yoga is by understanding the Sanskrit terms of the meaning of the king's name, the meaning of the merchant's name, the meaning of the yogi's name, the one who guides them, and the meaning of some of these asuras that are mentioned, which are often translated as demons in the English language. So first, what is the meaning of the Sanskrit meaning of the king's name? So the king's name is Suratha, and Suratha. So the Sanskrit word Su means noble or fine, right? And Ratha means chariot. And basically, what it means is that the king is a noble chariot. That's his name. Okay? He's a noble chariot. And when you think of it, or when you read it for the first time, you may not make this association of what is the connection between this term or this name, Suratha, and yoga. But in the Vedic period, what happens is yoga is referred to as chariot in the Vedic period. And there is an association. So people used to call chariots yoga, and those chariots were hitched up, or they were used during battlefield. So that term yoga was basically a term that was used during wartime, right? So Suratha, chariot, see, just keep in mind chariot. So there's a connection between Ratha, the chariot, as well as yoga. And that term yoga was also used for gods. It was used for in order to basically unite with a specific energy in the universe, or a specific deity in the universe. So first, it has a physical sort of connotation, where the word yoga is basically used in order to connect to chariot, and it has to do with all the parts of the chariot, not just its reins, its straps, and what have you. So it's connected to the whole thing. And then later on, that metaphor is sort of used by Vedic priests in order, and it develops a sort of an internal meaning, where you're now uniting yourself to the divine, or you're uniting yourself to a specific deity, so on and so forth. That's basically what yoga means, and its connection with the word Suratha. Now, the merchant's name is Samadhi. And Samadhi, actually, if you're a yoga practitioner, or in India, even, you would probably know what it means. So the term Samadhi basically means a heightened awareness, or an altered state of consciousness that is reached through deep meditation. So Samadhi, and the dhi of Samadhi, and if you're familiar with the Gayatri mantra, it says dhiyo yona prachodayat. So the dhi means intellect. So Samadhi means basically uniting, and uniting the entire self, the intellect, the body, mind, senses, to the external world. So the yogi, the practitioner, is basically getting united to everything that's in the universe, right? And then we have the merchant's, the sage's name, that is Medhas. And Medhas is really interesting, because Medhas actually means wisdom or intelligence. And it's not just plain intelligence, someone who just knows things, but someone who knows things at a much higher, deeper level, and also knows how to basically pass on that knowledge to another generation, right? To someone who's basically interested in knowing. So that is what. And then we have the term asuras. And so here's the 13 chapters of the Devi Mahatmyam, and we will see that the goddess, the great goddess, is seen as killing asuras. Now, asuras in English is translated as demons, but actually it can be demons, as in a Christian sense, in the sense that it's something external, it's an entity that's out there, that's a negative kind of spirit. It can be that, but in the Devi Mahatmyam specifically, these asuras are part of your own psyche, right? So they're not demons per se. They're just this dark side that exists within each one of us. And we see that the Divine Mother Goddess here is, you see in chapter 1, she's slaying Madhu and Kaitava. In chapter 2, she's again slaughtering some other, I'll just say demons for now, just without getting into semantics. And then she's slaying this, and this slaying goes on throughout. But in between, you will see some hymns that exist. And in the end, in the chapter 13, you'll see that there's a bestowing of boons to both Suratha, that is the king, and the merchant. And then we have the 3 secrets. So then the question is, who are these asuras? And these asuras, each of these names, and this is the argument that Swami Satyananda Saraswati makes. It's not an argument, but in his book, he says there are about 29 asuras that are mentioned, and I haven't really counted each one of them, but he kind of lists these. So they are anger, jealousy. I won't go through the entire list, but want of resolution. Then there's haughtiness, there's anxiety, there's blindness. And each of these are dormant within the human psyche. So they are basically just defilements, kleshas, right? And they exist within us. So I'd like to focus on just a few of these asuras. And the first is Madhukaitava. The second is Shumba Nishumba. Then we have Chandamunda. And this will sort of help you understand what this has got to do with yoga. And as I'm sort of trying to talk or share about these asuras, you can keep in mind the example of yoking that was given earlier on, and the meaning of yoga as a chariot. So Madhukaitava, and this is how Swami Satyananda Saraswati describes it. He describes it as too much and too little. Actually, Madhu in Sanskrit means honey, and Kaitava means something that's bitter. Shumbha means basically self-conceit. Shumbha means, this desire to adorn yourself. And he would translate it in English as self-conceit and self-deprecation. And Chanda and Munda as passion and anger. And then we have a couple of solitary ones. So what is honey and bitterness got to do with yoga? Now, if you're familiar with Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and with any of yoga philosophy, you know that there's something called Raga Dvesha. Raga Dvesha means attraction and repulsion. And there is a tendency, so Madhu, this honey-like sweet kind of thing, is a metaphor for those who are extremely attracted to things that are pleasing to them. And then when those same things, maybe at some point they may displease them, then they kind of get repelled, and then they stay away. And that's not what a yogi is supposed to be. So a yogi is supposed to be firmly grounded and firmly established in such a way that they don't get swayed. So imagine that metaphor of a chariot where you have horses, and the horses are likened to the senses, you see. So you have anger, you have lust, you have jealousy, and these, and there's the charioteer, but the charioteer is getting drawn in every direction. Sometimes it's this, sometimes imagine having 2 horses. One wants to go to Bangalore, the other one wants to go to, I don't know, Buffalo, New York. And imagine being a charioteer in that situation. So that is a metaphor for someone who's constantly being swayed and who's not grounded as a yogi. So and too much and too little does not talk. This has nothing to do about external activities. It has to do with internal activities, right? Or your internal stability. So a yogi needs to be in a state of equanimity. So too much and too little basically is this diametrical opposite. And they sort of pull the yogi. So it's kind of almost like a tug of war. And the yogi needs to transcend all of that. Then you have Shumba Nishumba. So Shumba Nishumba is, when sometimes when we go through things and then people say, oh, it's all because of me. I did this, and that is why this happened. So that's self-deprecation. Oh, it's because of me, or because of my habits. Or, this happened in my life because of this. So there's this tendency to victimize yourself, or to say negative things about yourself. And then on the other hand, there may be a tendency to basically put yourself and adorn yourself, because that's what Shumba means, to adorn yourself to such an extent that you don't give credit, or you're not seeing reality for what it is. It may have been 1 million people who have helped you, but it's basically pride, false pride, right? And then you have passion and anger, and then there's Rakta Bija. So Rakta Bija is so in the story, in the narrative, what happens is there's this demon, and Rakta means blood, and Bija means seed. And this demon has, again, I'm saying demon, but you understood, you must keep in mind that it has to do with dormant capacities within our own psyche. So this demon, I'm still going to say demon. So this demon has this boon that he is going to be immortal. No one is going to destroy him. And if they try to attack him, the blood that drips out of his body is going to produce another form that looks exactly like him, so a clone, if you will. And that form will have the same power, same potency that he has. And in the narrative, we see that the goddess destroys this demon as well. And the redness of the redness that is described, that is part of the seed of desire, that is part of blood, is a metaphor for everything that we want to do in life, which is unending. So we may have a tiny car, but now we may want a bigger one. We may have a good amount of money, but then we may want more. So desires are endless, and that's basically what this Rakta Bija represents. And then we have Mahishasura. This is slightly more difficult to sort of explain, but simply put, it's individuated experience. It's your experience, and the experience of subjectivity. This experience that gives you I amness, the sense of identity. And this thing where you see yourself as different. You are different. You are apart from the trees, the flowers, all other sentient beings, the earth and the elements and whatnot. So it's this ego self, and it is always depicted in art as the buffalo demon. You will see here, there's a buffalo demon that the goddess basically destroys in this narrative. So it's this ego self that gives you a sense of identity. So in this narrative, Shakta Yoga is hidden. And what is hidden is that the goddess is within all things. That's one important point. But just to define what Shakta Yoga is, and this is my definition. Shakta Yoga may be defined as a union with the supreme divine energy, because that is what Shakti means. Shakti comes from the Sanskrit root shak, which means to have the power to effect. So it's the power to walk, it's the power to think, it is the ability to desire. All of this is Shakti. So it's just energy, it's dynamism, it's this intrinsic power that is part of the universe. So the desire to will, that is called Ichha Shakti. The desire to act, that is called Kriya Shakti. And then like this, there are several other Shaktis. I won't get into the Sanskrit, but you get the picture. It's basically energy. And this energy is not from outside, it empowers from within. So Shakta Yoga may be defined as union with this supreme divine energy, both within, because it exists within us, and also without, because it exists in the entire universe, and whose goal for the yogi amounts to the confession of Saham. And Saham actually means I am she. So it's for a yogini or a yogi or a yogin, which is applicable to both, you want to become the goddess. That's the goal of Shakta yogis. And what is happening is that in this narrative, it's described really beautifully in the 3 secrets, is that the goddess is actually primordial matter, And this matter undergoes subsequent modification. So she self-mutates, and she, it's kind of like Transformers. So she transforms herself, and she herself becomes the universe of form and matter. So she becomes all things. So if you're familiar with Christian scriptures, you will see in the book of Genesis, God creates the universe, and it's not like that where there is an entity and then there's something that is created and then it is being empowered from the outside. It's not like that. In this tradition, what happens is the goddess herself, she's the primordial matter, and she basically self-mutates and she becomes the universe of form and matter. So she becomes all things. And this is important to know, because if she becomes all things, it means that we can appreciate the universe. So she's that one, that primordial matter, that primordial being, that primordial existence who takes the form of none, and then she becomes many. I won't talk much about none, but it's there in my book. Just to give you an example of what is none. For example, you think of something, you think, I will go to the grocery store. And then after a few seconds, you say, well, you know what, maybe I won't go to the grocery store. But what's between that thought? So the space that exists between that thought, this is just an example of what none is. None is just potency, the pure potency, which may not always have form. That is what none is. But the many has form. So the goddess who is one, and in all traditions, you see God is one. So this God who is one, this goddess who is one, becomes none, and then she becomes many. So then she takes on form. She becomes, penguins. She becomes every kind of sentient being, bird in flight, falling rain. She becomes everything that we can touch, that we can feel, that we can experience. I really like this picture because this actually depicts two things. One is the goddess herself is almost like a container. So she's carrying everything within herself, within her womb. That is where creation comes from. It comes from within her. And she's the one who gives form. So you will see within her, there are various other entities. You will see there are many Devis and Devatas. There's Vishnu, there's Shiva, there's Ganpati, many other Hindu deities are in there. But she's this primordial being who actually supports. She's the support of the universe. And she's containing all things. Now, each of these entities also have their own identity. They can rejoice within themselves. They have their own responsibilities. They have their own color, their own shape. They also have their own will, but their will, ultimately, everything that they do is being empowered. Remember, we said that Shakti means energy, it means dynamism, and all of this is being empowered by the Divine Mother Goddess. So this is the revelation that exists in the narrative. And in the narrative, there are also various forms of the Divine Mother that are basically spoken of. And those forms are important for a yogi, for a practitioner, because the mind needs something to hold on to. So what is Shakta Yoga? As I mentioned, Shakta Yoga includes flowers. It includes art. It includes aesthetics. It includes fragrances. It includes, light. It also includes, so it includes all the domains, right? You're including the tactile domain. You're including touch, because when you're holding these elements and as you're preparing them as a ritual practitioner, you are basically interacting with them, and then energies get exchanged. So you use light, you use fragrance, and what the space where you will be practicing is also important. Its color, its appearance. So Shakta Yoga is a mental kind of yoga. It's a psychophysiological yogic framework, but it combines all four domains, that is the visual, acoustic, olfactory, and tactile domains. So it's a different kind of yoga, and I like Feuerstein. He's a scholar of Tantra and yoga, and I like his explanation because he says, when he's talking about Tantra, and this is part also of Tantra, he uses these three categories to sort of help you understand what Tantra does. So that first is the verticalist approach, second is the horizontalist, and then you have the integrative approach. So the verticalist approach is, I want to know God, I want to know ultimate reality, I want to know who this goddess is. So they will leave their families, right? They would leave their families, they would go onto the Himalayas. Now it's kind of hard because, the snow caps are melting, but they would leave their families and go into an isolated space so that they can meditate and they can experience what this ultimate reality is. Then we have the horizontalist approach, and the horizontalist approach is basically these stages of life that was prescribed in the Vedas. So you go through all these sacraments, through the stage where you are initiated as a Hindu, you can get married, and then at a later stage you would go into the forest. And I didn't have a picture of this wonderful yogi's wife, but if you have a partner, a wife, you would bring them also with you towards the end of your life. So you see, it's almost like stages where you are progressing, and in the end, you would then realize what ultimate reality is. But yoga in the Devi Mahatmyam is integrative. And it's integrative in the sense that you don't have to leave anything, you don't have to go anywhere. You appreciate the world, because the world, as I mentioned earlier on, is all part of the Divine Mother Goddess. The world is her form, and she is taken on different shape and different form. So for a yogic practitioner, and for a Shakta, those who worship Shakti, the Divine Mother in the form of energy, she is in all things. And even in the most horrible things, for example, she's not just in the good things, she's also in things, in that neighbor, that nagging neighbor who upsets you all the time, or, things that we would consider negative, like, I don't know, certain beings in the universe that may appear to be harmful. We may think that it appears to be harmful. So Shakta Yoga actually includes both yoga and bhoga. So there is a verse in the Devi Mahatmyam, in the Devi Atharva Shisham actually, which says, Papa Bharanim Devi Bhukti Mukti Pradayinim, which means that the goddess, and it is sung because it's a mantra, and which means that the goddess grants both bhukti. Bhukti means, it comes from the word bhoga, which means enjoyment, participating in life, and it also includes suffering, and mukti. Mukti means liberation. So the merchant, and just to return back to the story of the king and the merchant, both the king and the merchant, they after they hear everything that the mystic and the sage says about the Divine Mother Goddess, they start their yoga practice. And it says in the text, and I'm not making this up, you can read Indian English translations. It says they offer candles, lights, flowers. They do this for a period of 3 years. They create a form by a river, a form as in an icon of the goddess, and they worship her with flowers, with incense, with lights, and with camphor, with betel nut. All of this is mentioned. And at the end of it, she appears. At the end of 3 years, she appears and she says, "What would you like?" So she asks the merchant, "I would like to give you a boon." And then the merchant says, "I would like liberation." And she says, "Liberation it is." And she grants him liberation. Now the king also asks, but he doesn't ask for liberation. The king says, "I'm interested in ruling a little bit more." So she says, "Okay, once you go back, your kingdom would be restored." So what the goddess does is she gives you your heart's desire, because remember that desire also comes from her. She is the seat of all desire. So she grants both yoga. So Shakta Tantra is both yoga and bhoga. She grants both bhukti as well as mukti. this is something really important to sort of remember. And now I'd like to share just a little bit of research on, some music. And so this is Dr. Evan O'Neill, and in the early 19th century, he started to experiment with music, and he's the one who we can give credit for, basically, for bringing music into the operation theaters in the US. And he started off by playing some music on the phonograph. And what happened was, he noticed that while he would play music, the patients would become less anxious, they would become less fearful, and instead of focusing on themselves and the pain that they were going through, they would start talking about the pieces, the musical bits that were being played, and then they would ask questions about the musical bits. So it appeared to him that music was having a good effect on patients, patients who were traumatized, because some of these patients who would come had gone through like railway accidents. So he published this, just a tiny bit about his experiment. He doesn't say much, he doesn't go into details, but he talks about, this experience where he's been playing the phonograph. And in case you didn't know what a phonograph looks like, there's a picture. I didn't know what a phonograph was, so I put it there for you. So now, since then, we've had a lot of experiments on music. And so here's this wonderful experiment that was conducted. And they did it with 75 children from ages 3 to 8. And these children, they were supposed to be going for surgery. And what they did was they used the 3-sample method. So they divided the group of children into I'm just trying not to use technical language. They put them in 3 groups. So the first group, and remember, these are really young kids. So the first group, they just received some verbal instruction one day before the surgery in the evening. The second group received some verbal instruction with music one day before the surgery. And the third group received some instruction just before they were going into the operation theater, and prior to going into surgery, with music. And the conclusion was that music therapy, that the music that was being used would actually work in such a way that it would make these kids less anxious. Now, there's a lot of research online that it also helps in reducing your blood pressure, your pulse rate, so on and so forth. If you're interested in in research, and here's another research that was conducted, and I really like this one. This was conducted in a shopping mall, and this research was interesting because what they did was they had this person who was basically trying to find people in the shopping mall in order to help them. So they would pretend that either they've lost something or that they wanted change. And this experiment was conducted in the presence of some ambient fragrances, like the fragrance of baked cookies and coffee. And what they noticed was that in the presence of these fragrances, the people would become, not only their mood would be good, but they were really interested in helping. So that is something that they noticed, that they would give out change, that they would start looking for this object that was lost, like a pen and so on. And then they conducted another experiment. And in this experiment, what they did was they asked people in the shopping mall, the ones who were basically very altruistic and who were helping around, they asked them, what's your mood? What kind of mood are you in? And it seemed like they were in a positive mood. So there is research that says that, ambient fragrances, that having light and including, the tactile domains, including fragrances, especially, And this is just an abbreviated version that I'm sharing here, but it's really important also for pro-social behavior. So, so coming back to the Devi Mahatmyam, and basically to the Hindu world, we see that yoga, and this is the argument that Rita Sharma makes. She is the director of the Center for Dharma Studies, and she makes the argument that yoga is not just backbends, it's much more than that. And in the Hindu world, we will see that dance forms, Kathakali, Bharatanatyam, even classical singing, this is all part of yoga, because it's not just, and when we say yoga, we mean as a practice, it's used as a medium in order to unite yourself to ultimate reality, to experience something other than yourself, transcend yourself. That is what yoga is. And we see that in the Devi Mahatmyam, there is a huge need, it seems like, to describe the goddesses, because each time these goddesses are invoked, and each time they go around slaying. Before chapter 1, before chapter 2, and also before chapter 3, we see that there's this huge visualization that takes place. So in chapter 1 itself, we see that there is a visualization that is dedicated to the goddess Mahakali. And this is what it describes in English. It says, bearing in her 10 hands the sword of worship, the discus of revolving time, the club of articulation, the bow of determination, the iron bar of restraint, the pike of attention, the sling, the head of egotism, and the conch of vibrations. She has 3 eyes and displays ornaments on all her limbs. Shining like a blue gem, she has 10 faces and feet. I worship the great remover of darkness, whom the lotus-born creative capacity praised in order to slay too much and too little, when the supreme consciousness was asleep. It's a little bit, don't worry if you don't get everything that is mentioned in this translation. And also this is translated, and the person who has translated it also gives the inner meaning. So for example, when he's talking about the sword, he's calling it the sword of worship. This is the sword that is used basically to slay the ego. But what I want to focus on is on visualization. Visualization is really, really important because it gives the mind something to hold on to. And we see that the goddess is described in great detail. So along with the auditory, because the mantra is recited, it's almost like a song, and it's poetry, right? So it goes khadgam chakra gadesh chapa parighan shulam bhushandim shirha shankam sandatin kairestinainam sarvanga bhusha bhutam Neelashmadditimase padashakam seve mahakalikam yamatstotsapite haro kamaljum hantum madhum kaitavam. So this is just so you know what it sounds like. And all of the weapons are described so that the practitioner, the yogi, can now focus mentally on that form. So you see, the yogi is now enabled to reach heightened states of consciousness with the help of flowers, with the help of candles, with the help of lights, with the help of this fragrant, this colorful kind of atmosphere. And that helps the yogi or the yogin or the yogini transcend. In this image, what you will see is that she has many arms, and many heads, not because she's a demoness, as some, unfortunately, they misunderstand. She has many heads because she's looking in all the directions, and that represents her omniscience. Her many hands represents her omnipotence, and her many feet means that she is present everywhere in all the directions. And each of these accoutrements that you will see, they all mean something. So there's nothing random. She has blue. She's the color of blue. She's like a blue gem. And the severed arms that she has, that this girdle that she's wearing out of severed arms, is actually the sin or the papam. Actually, I'm just going to say sin for now. but it's actually the wrongdoings, the unmeritorious activities that humans perform. So she takes all of that and she will do it very quickly. So that's what visualization does. It brings the yogi or the yogini into the presence of the divine, and Shakta Yoga includes all of these domains: the oral, the tactile, all of these various domains that I spoke of. Okay, so I want to talk about application and how you can apply this, how you can basically use this in your life, this knowledge that I've shared. So the first is you want to figure out what kind of personality you have. And this is very important. If you have children, it's important for your children. If you have a partner, you need to know what your partner likes. And I hope you do. So you need to figure out whether you're a person of the heart, of the mind, of the body. Do you tend to use the body a lot? If you're a yoga practitioner, you will tend to use the body a little bit more, but it doesn't mean that the other elements are not there. So you tend to be focused a little bit in one area. So you want to include other elements, elements of sound, perhaps, or other tactile elements. So what makes yoga, and irrespective of all the theology that I've shared, basically theology without getting into the Greek, it just means God study. Like you have biology, study of life, of sentience, of plants, what have you, you know what I mean. So, and then you have sociology, study of society. So theology is the study of God or the goddess. And in the case of the goddess, it'll be theology because it means ultimate reality is feminine. Now, irrespective of whether you believe in all of this or not, I've just shared some very scientific information that it helps. So you can incorporate this wherever you are in your families. You can incorporate it at various levels in your workspaces also. And what you can do is, for your personal life, if you are interested in going a little bit deeper, then you can form an intention for your workspace, an intention for your yoga studio, an intention for you as a parent, whatever intention that you have. Keeping an intention has nothing to do with, with the Hindu world per se. If you look at it, everything that I've shared right now, in terms of energy, we are all empowered by that energy. And irrespective of who you are, you have that energy. And that is not, even though it is articulated in the Hindu tradition, the fact that we all have energy is just part of reality. So when you create an intention, you're actually using that energy within you, your own will, which is called Ichha Shakti. And now you create an intention for your workspace, and then you will see how things sort of unfold. The third is, after you've created an intention, you want to focus on it with one pointed focus. That is really important. If you're not able to focus, and your mind keeps getting distracted, that's okay. Don't worry about it. You can just gently bring yourself back into whatever it is that you're trying to focus on. If it is work, if it is, cooking, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And I stalked Priya, and I found this, wonderful picture of hers. So she's right in the middle. And so what you can do is, and how you can include this in your workspace, in your houses, you can include the visual, you can include the acoustic, you could include the olfactory. It helps even students. And there's research on how you can, lavender lemonade helps migraine. On how lavender will help you not just heal, but it'll help you be much more effective and help your intellect more. When you are practicing yoga, I suggest there are some of you who probably are already doing this. The energy in is different at different time of the day, so you might want to figure out where you would like to practice. But it is mentioned in some of the Hindu texts. The spaces are also mentioned where you can meditate. So you don't want to practice or even meditate, for that matter, in a fort, or a fort that's broken, or a building that's broken. that's abandoned. You could go to parks, you could go to where there's a river flowing, a confluence of rivers. So that kind of spaces are recommended. And then you could garden, you could hike, you could dance. All of this could be part of how you want to use your energy. And that's all I have for you. Thank you for listening. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pravina. And to let you know, I did use this lavender lemonade today for a migraine, and it has released some amount of the headache. So it works. The olfactory and the sensory organs, stimulating all of them have.
Yeah, all of it. And if you sort of use them all together, also if you combine them together, and I forgot to mention that some of the pictures that I have used is from Dr. Han, the one with the cherry blossoms. So in the PowerPoint, I've used a couple of lovely pictures. So, just even looking at flowers, even looking at a picture, or even listening to it helps a lot. And if you combine all of these together, it becomes really effective, because what happens is, see, we all suffer in different ways. That is what the Buddha said. And what happens is this gives us a bridge to heal ourselves. And all of these elements are present within the universe, and we can incorporate them into our yoga practice.
Speaking of, referencing the other books, somebody actually asked Swami Yogaratna, who is the founder of the Shankar Prasad ashram in Gokarna, actually asked which book by Swami Satyananda. So if you can elaborate, if you can just also
the picture, the first picture, it's called Chandi Patha, that one. So that's the translation. So, you can get different kinds of translations. You can get a literal translation. He goes deeper and he gives his meaning to it. And there's also videos, that he has he calls them the generals of the Chandi. So he calls the Asuras, translated in English as demons. He calls them the generals in the Chandi. So there's a PowerPoint. So it's not in the book. And Om Swami's video is also on YouTube, so you can find that as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. So speaking of the Asuras, we did have a couple of questions. The first was whether any of this is based on Christian theology, and also in going off of that, another question from Samprakta Chatterjee is, can we draw parallels between the depictions of the Asuras and the 7 deadly sins? And if so, how do we make sense of Christianity being a male-dominated religion versus the Shakta ideologies?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. And I'm a comparative theologian, so I love this question. So first thing is, I don't think it's borrowing from Christianity or even alluding to Christianity, because it's just so unique. And I'll tell you how it's different. So in the Christian world, at least for the Roman Catholic rite, not the other rites, and there are about 22 or 23 plus 1 rites in the Roman Catholic Church, and there are many other different kinds of Christians. There's Baptists, Anabaptists, there's Presbyterians, so on and so forth. So it depends. But most of the Christians that I know, or most of the Christian traditions that I know, they are dualistic, in the sense that there is there's God, and then God creates the universe, and and then God is animating the universe from the outside, right? But in this case, what happens is it's non-dualistic. Non-dualistic means it's Advaita. And what it means basically is that the Divine Mother Goddess, remember we said she is both without and within. And the goal of the yogin is basically to realize her within your own body, to sort of realize her capacity, and as she's sort of empowering you from within. So you become her hands. After all the defilement is sort of dissolved, then you become her hands, you become her eyes, you become her real presence, if you will, in the universe. So it's not dualistic. There isn't a savior who's coming from outside. She doesn't come, all bright and glorious with a sari, but she's, this revelation is in the Indian tradition. She doesn't come with a sari and with a sword and, at the door, and she's like, I'm here, she comes from within. So it's your own energy that rises, and it's your own capacity that strengthens you from the inside. And then as that happens, you see how reality also changes. You stop being angry, aggressive. You become more compassionate and caring, so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, I want to follow up that question, although I have a couple of follow-ups that I'll ask you on an individual level, just for the sake of time. There's two more questions that I'd like to pose to you that are coming from the audience. And before that, I just want to let the audience know that all the participants, we will be following at the end of the question answer, we have Dr. Pravina will take us through a practical, so meditation. So, please stay on for that. It'll be a 10 to 15 minute session. And I'd also like and at the end of that, we'll have a couple of poll questions as well, because we would really like to, we're very grateful for all of you participating in this program. As Priya mentioned, we are a women's yoginis council, or a yogini sangha, and you don't get to see that very often in this world today, where women are leading the conversation, women are leading the discussion and the dialogue, and even the organization of the program has all been done by these council members. And we really appreciate everybody supporting the empowerment of this yogini council, this women's council. And we'd like to have you participate in more, this Shakti Kumbh of sorts. And that's an inside joke or an inside laughter from Tarama. But we'd really like to have you participate in more, and we'd like to get your ideas and be able to bring forth what all of you are interested in. So with that said, the next question is from Marilyn Fernandez, and who is from Santa Clara University. She's a retired professor from, I think, Professor Emirata. And she'd like you to speak about the connection between your personal biography with a Christian name of Rodrigues and the Śākta journey.
So I was born and raised as a Catholic. My last name is Rodrigues because my dad was from Goa, and Goa was colonized by the Portuguese. So that's why I have that last name. But as I say in the first chapter of my book, which is a Śākta Method for Comparative Theology, that I'm not sure what exactly would have happened, in the sense that there could have been like 3 or 4 possibilities. There could have been like forced conversions. There could have been intermarriage between Hindus, because with Portuguese, someone in the family could have been intermarried. One thing I know is that my mom did say on a couple of occasions that both my mom's side as well as my dad's side are Brahmins. But there's no recollection, and they're totally devoted Catholics. And when I was doing my master's, that's when I got introduced. I was always interested in comparative theology, and I think the goddess was like, because when I was doing my bachelor's, I read a paper which compares Mother Mary to Kali. So the Mother Mary, when she goes to meet, when she finds out that she's pregnant, and then she goes and she meets her cousins. So at that time, her mania, and that person compares that experience to Kali, and it was very interesting. And then several years later, I continued studying comparative theology, and I met two of my gurumas. Both of them are yoginis, and I got initiated into the tradition, and that's how I'm a Shakta Yoga practitioner, as a non-dual Advaitin Shakta Yoga practitioner. Yeah, so that's my background.
Thank you very much. The last question is, okay, Dr. Pravina, you've discussed now the one, the none, the many, and as you know, I've read your book in detail as well, your latest book, and you're also aware that I am interested in the power of women through the concept of Sangha, and that is through togetherness or community. What do you, how does Shakta theology define this idea of Sangha, and what is the perspective on Sangha? How can Shakta yoga be practiced together? And I have a feeling that the practice that we do will incorporate that.
So how can we incorporate it together, you mean, in a community? Is that the question?
Yeah, towards the goal of Shakta yoga.
Yeah, so Shakta yoga, it has all these various elements, and it basically unites, because what happens is we tend to use one aspect of our lives. So if you're in academia, you would use your mind. If you are, if you have a yoga studio, you will tend to just use the body, a lot of physical activities. And what Shakta yoga does is it will integrate all of these dimensions, and it will make you whole. And this can be done irrespective of your gender identity, irrespective of your sex, or it can be done together. But the best part is that when you practice together with all these various elements, you generate a very positive, good energy, and then that is of benefit to the universe, because that's prayer. And it goes beyond, because you see, when you practice together as a community, and it's almost like just one spark can't do much, but if you have several logs of wood that are combined together, then you create this energy. And then to use some of these science fiction movies and all these Wonder Woman and whatnot, you can take that energy, and people actually do that. Okay, you can take that energy and move it in different directions. Advanced yogis and yoginis and yogins, they do that. They're able to move that energy to heal, to change things in the universe, to affect people's thoughts, and for various others. So it's not a very self-centered kind of practice. You have to move beyond yourself and heal the world, basically.
And maybe there are several religious traditions around the world and several communities that are already doing this. I mean, for example, the Christian, a lot of the Christian
mystics, Christian mystics, yeah. So see, I think that everyone, the people who are into prayer, people who are into forms of mysticism, they may some may not even acknowledge that they are mystics, or that they are into, but when they say something, you will see it actually happening in reality. You will see that it actually manifests, it happens. It may be as small as keep this book, or return that bag. And you're like, why do I have to return that bag? Okay, all right, okay. and you just hold on to the bag, and then you realize, oh no, I should have returned it. So it could be something as simple as that, but sort of reality bends, it stoops, it becomes very malleable, and it listens to those who have destroyed and whose defilements are clear.
Wonderful. Great. So let's, I know we're already running over time a little bit. So in honor of everybody's time, let's go ahead and move forward with the actual practice. And
okay, so before I sort of this is a guided meditation. So basically, it's just visualizing, right? Visualizing and thinking that you're going on a specific sort of a journey, and thinking of how you're going to get there is not part of this journey. So you're just going extremely relaxed. You're going on this journey. You're traveling, and part of this visualization is basically trying to put yourself in that space and trying to create within your body an energy that will put you in a space of comfort. And as you meditate, what will happen is, there might be things that'll come to mind, things that you need to do. You might get distracted, or you might get tempted to think about specific things. But what you want to do is bring your mind gently back. You don't want to force your mind. You don't want to force your body. You want to be completely relaxed during this visualization. And as you're being relaxed, and as you're being present to this visualization, you don't want to be stressed. And as you're thinking of various elements, if there are some things that occur or reoccur, then that's okay. Just make a mental note of what are things that are reoccurring. It could be something that you need to take care of that is within you, or it could be something that someone else needs to take care of. But don't get overly worked about it. Just be in a comfortable space, okay? So sit back, relax. You can close your eyes gently. Just going to change my view so that close your eyes, breathe in, gently breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out, relax your mind, relax your face, your facial muscles. Keep your hands in a comfortable position. You can sit down in any posture that you are comfortable in. If your feet are on the floor, make sure that they are touching the floor completely. Feel the earth beneath you. Take some deep breaths. Relax your shoulders, your lower back. Now visualize that you're going on a journey. You are walking. You're walking in a forest. It's a beautiful forest, and it has a pathway. You are alone. There's no one with you. There's no one around you. It's very peaceful and quiet. You are safe. You are secure. It's a winding path, and as you walk, you're looking at the flowers around you. There are some beautiful flowers of different colors. You walk slowly. You breathe in. You soak in the fresh air. As you walk, you reach out to some of the flowers. You touch them. You don't pluck anything. You just feel them for a little bit. And you continue walking. The weather is perfect. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. The light around you is perfect. You are totally relaxed. As you walk, you see some deers around you. And as you walk further, you see some waters. You see a lake. You enjoy the scene. The lake is still. It's beautiful and blue. You take off your footwear and you walk on the grass. The grass beneath your feet is soft and it's cool. You find a space for yourself to sit down. In whatever posture that makes you comfortable. You sit there. You are reclined just a little bit. And you breathe in. You hear some birds chirping. And you're in a very good mood. You have nothing to do at this time. There is no work that has to be completed. You have nowhere to go. You are just completely free. You have no aches and pains. There's no stress in your body. Your mind is completely free. You take a deep breath and you breathe out and you look around. You continue being in the presence of nature. As you take a deep breath, you can feel different fragrances. You can spend some time in this silence. Continue to be in that silence. you can bring this peace. Keep an intention of bringing this peace, this solitude, everything that you have felt and experienced back with you. And as you come back, take a moment